Guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Kaplan America podcast. This one we're doing off-site, on-site at the best rally in New England. This is the Americanade Rally. We are here with the whole team. I want to thank our sponsors, Buell, Stark, and Gas, for helping us put this together. And without further ado, I got to introduce one of the legends of motorcycling. This guy's a true legend. He's been in and around the industry since the early 70s. And one of his great crowning accomplishments was starting the Americanade Rally, which has become a staple of the motorcycle industry. This is the largest all brands rally in the country. All 20 brands are here today, thanks to him. His son, Christian, has taken over as the principal running the event. But without further ado, let me introduce Bill Dutcher. This is the man, the legend right here.
Talk about legends. Ken's quite a legend. The shape of his legend curves like that. Mine's a little bit more like that. It's longer and flatter. But actually, I got into the industry in '65. I was hired.
That was the year I was born, 60 years ago.
I was hired by Bultaco to be their first Eastern U.S. roadman. Go out and set up Bultaco dealerships everywhere east of the Mississippi River.
Wow.
So that was right in off the deep end. But the good news is I was a racer. And so now that meant somebody gave me a truck, a credit card, gasoline, daily expenses, and 2 motorcycles, one of which was my race bike, and 2 bikes to play with. So like an alcoholic being given a liquor store, you know. I mean, you're really going to pay me too? So I did that for 10 years, 65 to 75, ended up as director of marketing for the company, and we expanded nationally. And that was a great introduction, though, because I met a whole lot of people all across the country. And that was my first step in the door. Then, oh gosh, I did a 3-month consultancy up in Valcourt, Quebec, working for Bombardier, who made Can-Am motorcycles, or they were just about to come in with a motocrosser. And they wanted me to teach their 70-person snowmobile sales rep force how to speak motorcycle, which, by the way, you learn there's different cultures. I mean, these guys were sort of motor people. They had a snowmobile, had a track and a motor, but try to explain to people and give them the feeling of what it's like in the motorcycle world. That's tougher than you think. It's like, you know, trying to teach golfers to be surfers or something. It's quite a different culture. But anyway, there was that, and then my boss there said, hey, here's a headhunter letter. They're trying to find somebody to be the director of public relations for Harley-Davidson. He didn't actually say that. The letter said for a famous American motorcycle manufacturer. Well, right then there was exactly one. Indian hadn't come back to the surface, so it wasn't too hard to figure out who it was. So I got that job, and that was 75 to 81, very interesting job. And during the course of that, I went to an event out in New Mexico called Aspen Cade. Never thought for the moment it would be, I mean, to be perfectly honest, touring riding wasn't what I was about. So I was hanging around with a bunch of dressers and, you know, early Gold Wings and Harley dressers and a few BMWs. Never thinking for the world that I'd have anything to do with something like that. Just shook hands, met people, met the organizer, got along with him real well. And then in '81, Harley wanted me to move to Milwaukee. But by then I'd bought a camp up on the shores of Lake George. And I have a 2,500-foot mountain in my backyard and 32 miles of drinking pure water in my front yard and a boathouse. And I looked at Milwaukee, which isn't a bad town, but it's a city. And I looked where I lived and I thought, I'm getting off the corporate bus. So it saddened me because I loved the guy I worked for, a guy named Von Beals. He was the guy who rescued Harley-Davidson. He was like the Lee Iacocca of the motorcycle world in this case. He saved, absolutely. He's the guy that created the leveraged buyout that enabled them to buy Harley. And they got together a dozen shareholders who it only cost them $100,000 to get in. They leveraged $2 million against, I think, a $64 million sales price. I mean, that's chump change in today's world, but that's what they got it for, 64 mil. AMF had paid, I think, or had 200 mil in it. They'd paid maybe 70 and put a whole lot in it that they didn't get a whole lot back out of. But anyway, so I looked at Milwaukee and said, thanks, but no thanks. Intending to sell the house in Connecticut and live up here full time. Timing was bad. It was the beginning of a recession in '81. And there were 2 things you couldn't do real easily. You couldn't sell a house and you couldn't get a job. Guess who needed to sell a house and get a job? I zigged when I should have zagged. and scared the hell out of myself. And woke up one night actually hadn't gone to sleep. It flashed in my head. I thought, wow, look at this place. It's beautiful riding. There's a whole bunch of motels. It's easy to get here. It's almost on the crossroads between the east-west Boston to Buffalo Road and the one from New York City up to Montreal. Easy to get here. Wow, I'll bet something like that Aspencade I saw out in New Mexico, I'll bet something like that would work here. So I pick up the phone, I dialed the guy, Till Thompson was his name, and pitched the thing to him, and borrowed a little money from my friend so I could fly him out here, because by then I had 2 mortgages, 2 kids, my cash flow had done that, and I hadn't been able to get a job yet, although right at the same time I finally got a call back and I got a job that paid less than half of what I'd been making, but I was delighted to have it. Anyway, flew Till Thompson out here, signed a deal on 3-part speed note form that I'd pay him, I think it was $3,000 a year plus 10% of any profits. We had ourselves a deal for 3 years. I had the rights to use the name Aspencade for a motorcycle convention in the Lake George region. Actually, I think it was written broader than that. It might have at that point been everything east of the Mississippi. I think that's what it was. So bingo, it took me a year and a half to make it happen. It was 83 that I finally got it off the ground, May of 83, and we had a couple of thousand people, which is about the same number he'd had after doing it, 10 or 11 years. But in his case, it was, I think, a 10-hour drive from LA. Ruidosso's pretty, but it's hard to get there. Well, Lake George is pretty, and it's not so hard to get here. So, long story short, that's how I started Aspencade East in 83. And then by 3 years later, unfortunately, he didn't want to renew the deal. There's a whole big backstory to that, but I won't waste your time unless you buy me another drink.
With that.
But anyway, I got the thing. I bump started and got it off the ground, and we broke even first year. By then, I was working at a valve company in Glens Falls. That was the big old offer I got, and so I had to learn how to talk stainless steel ball and butterfly valves for the process control industry. And you do what you got to do. But anyway, I stayed with that. I didn't quit my day job for a year and a half. But this thing was taken off. And in 3 years, we had over 10,000 people.
Wow.
The shape of it was just like that. So it was time to give it full-time effort. And then it grew. I ended up with 10 employees. That was back before the business took a deep breath back in 2008. It sort of settled back, and it's coming out of that slowly. But it was the time, They say it's better to be lucky than skillful, and I'll go with that. My timing was good because in early 80s, the Honda Goldwing had come out. Then they bought the name Aspencade from Till Thompson. I know the insider on that deal because it was his name, and they wanted to apply it to a dresser with something that looked like a Craig Vetter fairing on the front of it. That's the whole story. But anyway, my timing was good. So Yamaha had come out with a Venture, and Kawasaki had his Voyager, and Suzuki had his Cavalcade. They all wanted to be part of the action. Terrific. So I got together ultimately 200 volunteers to help run the tours and do all the meet and greet. And it's still a similar event now. It's changed a good bit. We've got many more manufacturers. We got nearly 20, I guess, this year represented here, which is the most I think that's ever been here. I never had more than about a dozen. I was pretty proud of that.
It's huge.
So that's the thumbnail of it, man. I got backstories up the yin yang, but that's the bones of it. Somebody would ask, I'll answer the question I get asked, where did the name Aspencade come from? And that's because in Ruidoso, the Chamber of Commerce wanted to create an event in the fall to boost tourism. And in the fall, their aspen trees lose their leaves. Well, before they lose, I'm sorry, I'm totally wrong. In the fall, their aspen trees turn yellow instead of the green. And so it's not nearly like the fall in New England, but they thought they would use the word aspen, and they happen to have what's apparently the biggest quarter horse racetrack in this country. So they had a lot of horses. So they thought, we'll make a parade of horses, and it'll be a cavalcade. Well, let's make it the Aspencade. So that's where the word aspen, it didn't have anything to do with Aspen, Colorado. It had everything to do with aspen trees. Anyway, that's where the word aspen came from. And the word Americade came because after 3 years, the guy didn't want to renew the deal. I had to come up with a new name. My wife came up with that name.
God bless her. That was brilliant.
She whacked me in the ribs and said, how about Americade? And with my vast wisdom, I said, nah, too many syllables. Because Aspen Cade only had 3, good trade names have minimum syllables. Gas, Honda, Beta, just nice and simple. Harley Davidson's a massive exception to that. But, and then I thought about it a little more, and I thought, it is a national-sized event. That might work. Change the name, we're off to the races.
That's wild. I was thinking success leaves clues, and your journey has a lot of clues in it, and a little bit of a leap of faith, leaving your full-time job to start the rally, and the success it had is phenomenal. How many years now has it been going?
43 years. And I've managed to make it to age 83. And anybody who knew me in my 20s would say, no chance. That would have never happened, because I used to be moderately nuts. I mean, I love motorcycles to death. I loved doing anything I've raced almost every kind of racing that there exists. And I had some level of success here and there. And, you can race a long time as long as you don't make the big mistake.
Yeah.
I broke small stuff, wrists and stuff, but never anything major. I got all sorts of crash stories, but nobody needs to hear them. Everybody does.
So here he is, 60 years later from when he started in the motorcycle industry, 60 years strong, still here at Americade, making it happen with his son at the helm, but you're still here helping guide the ship,
Yeah, he's 99.9% of it now. My job is to stand and wave and do stuff like this.
You're the ambassador in the face of Americade, and how many other rallies, like go to Laconia, who started Laconia? Who knows? Go to Daytona, who started Daytona? Who knows? You are the legend of Americade, and there should be a bronze statue of you here in your honor, for creating this.
Wait till I croak. Don't do it yet, please.
Christy, come on
Make
over
me
here.
feel too old.
Now, we go to a lot of rallies. We go to all the rallies, basically. What's your favorite rally?
Oh, Americade.
Sing it out.
Yeah.
And why is Americade your favorite rally?
It's about the ride. You can't, Route 9, going through around the lake, the mountains, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And there's no better place to really test, ride, whatever motorcycle you could desire is here in the best atmosphere to try it out.
That's why all the manufacturers are here. They know that they know this. And the roads, this Route 9 North here is like a asphalt ribbon roller coaster for adults. It's absolutely spectacular. There's about a 10-mile section where there's no crossroads, uphills, downhills. The views are spectacular. Prospect Mountain right behind here is a private road that leads to a lookout overlooking the whole lake. It's beautiful. The hotel's spectacular. The restaurants, the atmosphere. This is a family event.
There's
Bring your kids.
rides.
We brought our cats with us to this event. Okay. We got our kids. Then you have steamboat rides. We wanted a steamboat ride.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And there's fireworks, and all the manufacturers are here. All the vendors are here. The hotel, we're at the Fort William Henry Hotel. This is ground zero of the event.
The
and
best
it is
hotel.
Just spectacular venue. The lakeside restaurant they have at Lakeview is incredible. Morning breakfast overlooking the lake, dinner overlooking the lake. And you really hit the nail on the head with this. And 43 years later, right?
Yeah, we only started coming here, I'm winging it now, maybe 10 years ago. Because we used to be at a place called Roaring Brook Ranch, which was out Route 9W heading towards Lake Luzerne. It was a nice dude ranch that had tennis courts and whatever, but we simply outgrew it. And it was out of town, so you couldn't. Well, finally they made a bus stop up there, but it didn't work like this works. So, however, this is a challenge because we're so much bigger than this property that we sprawl all over the place. And, one of the negatives is it takes a bit of learning to figure out where everything is.
But it distributes to people, and it also, I believe, brings in, business to all the businesses here. You got all these new customers, something to do, and then you got a beautiful street down here of restaurants and shops.
Many people come back again and again. In fact, many people have told me they bought a house up here because of Americade. They came up and didn't realize how beautiful it was, and they were at the point they were going to retire or whatever, and they came up and bought a house.
The locals here, the locals that run the shops, all the people welcome us with open arms. And one thing I've got to say is there's some of my favorite events have become like shooting fish in a barrel for the police, namely Daytona. It's like I got my first ticket there this year for something that was absolutely ridiculous, and the cop told me, he goes, "We're hired guns. We're here specifically to give tickets and raise revenues." That's no way to increase people wanting to come to a venue. The police here have been fantastic. They haven't even given us any problem at all, and I haven't seen a single biker pulled over. And they did pull us over last year for, well, one of the guys was hanging out of our car filming, and which is totally illegal. You know, no seatbelt on. He was literally hanging, filming us riding the Super Cruiser down the road. Okay, and he just told us knock it off and get back in the car. So I mean, in other venues, you're going to be going to court. You know, so it's just everybody's. There's something special about the Lake George region. I feel the president.
Totally different vibe. It's a really, I don't know. It's the most. I find it relaxing and.
It's in the state of New York, but it does not have the New York City attitude.
Not at all. I don't even think. I don't even equate New York City with this. Is like this. There's like a special vibe here. Like I said, like it's like the hand of God, the presence of God here. This is God's country. It's absolutely spectacular. The lake is something else. I think it's what 50 miles long.
32 miles long, and it is drinking pure. It is New York State AAA reservoir quality. Now, I wouldn't recommend you stick your mouth in it right down here in Lake George Village, but in fact, I live about 10 miles up, and I have a pipe that goes into the lake, and it's at about 40 feet of water, and we drink it unfiltered.
Wow.
We have a strainer to keep the fish out, you know, but...
guys, if you come here, you take a ride around the lake, take Route 9 North, take the ferry over and come down the other side. It takes, what was it, 2.5 hours, I think, for the ride. Spectacular road.
Yeah, you don't want to rush it because there's some good stops.
There is. They also have a Star Trek museum at Fort Ticonderoga, which I want to go and sit in the big chair and say, beam me up, Scotty, there's no two-strokes here. So, but that'll happen eventually. But and they have the Fort Ticonderoga Museum, which is an actual fort where they fought, and it's spectacularly restored. There's the museum right here. You walk out of the hotel, and right there they have the Fort William Henry Museum, which is a museum documenting the wars of the 1750s with the French Indian wars and everything else.
They used to shoot off cannons on the hour. I assume they've not been doing it this week.
I heard a couple of them, but I wouldn't say it was on the hour.
The vendors down below don't like that much because it'll make you jump.
Yeah. So if you were to do it over again, would you do anything different?
You know, that's strangely enough, nobody's asked me that question. That's a terrific and almost like an obvious question. So I haven't prepared a bit of thinking on that. Wow. I mean, I learned right in the beginning, the first time I did Americade, it was in the middle of May. And that was too early. It was too cold, too wet, too cold. We used to have it in June, and Christian had to back it into the very end of May this year to get some of the manufacturers, I believe. But so I learned, bump it. I might have worked more with the town, village, and county management before. I just kind of jumped into it, and you know, we didn't have a terribly rocky road, but it could have been smoother if I'd been a little smarter about it. I'll have to think about that. That's, you know, I talk about the penny drops. You know, it's like in a pachinko machine. It sort of ambles down, ding, and finally goes clunk. And mine's still in the ambling stage because you just asked me that, and by next year I'll have an answer.
So you had a career in racing motorcycles too. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know you raced in pretty much all the different sports that revolve around two wheels in racing.
I did. I was initially a road racer because I had a street bike, and my idea of fun was to get out early in the morning before traffic built and learn how far I could lean it and what it felt like when the tires were at the edge of traction. And I really did get a good feeling for it. If the tires were overinflated, they would kind of chatter when they were on the edge of traction. And if they were a little underinflated, had kind of a muddy feeling. They'd kind of, like an Eberhard racer, they'd sort of scooge a little bit. And that helped a lot when I started road racing, because I've been practicing on the street. I was reasonably careful not to practice. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that would do wheelies down between two lanes of traffic. I recognize automobiles can really hurt you. And it's good to give a little bit of thought to what's on the outside of the turn. And you don't want to come around a blind turn. That's the biggest, in my opinion, sort of X factor in somebody who rides rapidly on the road, is coming around a turn where, yeah, you're in perfect control, but there's some moron in a cage who's busy texting, and you discover and they discover, and it's just too late, and somebody hits somebody, and you're not going to do well. So I always gave a little thought to, is there runoff area? Because I've crashed a few times, broken a few small, but never anything big. Anyway, so road racing was my thing, but Bultaco was getting out of road racing right when I went to work for them. So I learned how to motocross, flat track, did enduros, did trials, but very poorly. The only thing I never did is a hill climb. Not for any reason, I just never crossed my path.
If you come to Gunstock, I'll give you a bike a week from this coming Wednesday if you want to do it.
They have a class for 80-year-olds for hill climbing.
There are several of my good friends are in their 70s, late 70s, and I know one guy who was 90 still doing hill climbs on a what was it, Norton 750.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So hill climbing is great because it's only 10 seconds, and us old guys, I'm 60.
Yeah, you can hang on.
We can hold it wide open for 10 seconds, no problem. It's the 20-minute motos that get me, you know?
Motocross was brutal. My timing was such, I ended up riding at Unadilla, the race before they had their first national there. And Seaber Robinson was the guy that owned it. He was the farmer.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh boy, well, it was between 65 and 75. That was when I worked for Bultaco. I'm guessing it was 72 or 3. It was in the early 70s for sure. Okay. And I was on a Bultaco Bandito, which is their 360 single, which had kind of radical power characteristics. And it was great for getting out of the hole. I was first into the first turn, and I knew I had no business there because I hadn't trained. I wasn't in shape. And by the end of the first lap, I was in the middle of the pack. And by 2 laps, I was probably the last with my tongue hanging out. Terrible arm pump. And needless to say, I didn't have much of a career in motocross. I can say I motocrossed. Now, my strength was flat tracking, indoor short track. They had races at Madison Square Garden and Houston Astrodome and Daytona. I raced Daytona short track.
Wow. During bike week or?
Yeah. I made it to the semis. It's very, very tough there, man. If you make it to the semis, you've done better than 200 other people.
Yeah. So, obviously, with a rally of this size and capacity, you probably took some. I said success leaves clues. There's other big rallies like Laconia, Daytona, Sturgis. Have you been going to those rallies throughout the years and taking pieces?
Not in a long time. I mean, as part of the industry, I was at them, which no doubt formed some of the background that helped me decide what I wanted to do and what I wanted to not do. Yep. For example, we don't have any racing associated with Americade. Number one, there's no good racetrack right real near. That's probably the biggest factor. But number two, when I started with the event here, I wanted nice, calm, conservative, touring people. I didn't want to start off with the wild and woolly stuff, Laconia, Sturgis, they got that. Okay, great. They're having to wrestle with it. That's a challenge they got. Yep. I never had much of that challenge here. I had every day start with the Christian Motorcycle Association's religious service. I thought having that at the top of every day's schedule kind of suggested that, hey, we're not here for, terrorizing the neighborhood. So anyway.
That's awesome. So did you your flat tracking, did you race locally here too, or?
Yeah, I did. At one point when I was with Bultaco was in Schenectady, New York, and there was a nice track called the EC track, Electric City track, and it was a very nice for a local. It was a nice, it was probably total length of about a half a mile, had some switchbacks and a jump, and I was never beaten there. I ruled the roost, big deal. But other racetracks around here. Well, I traveled quite a bit after, when I was on the road for Bultaco, I was trying to set up dealers. So I found out if I could stop, if there was a town I wanted to set up a dealer in, I knew what dealer I wanted to set up, and I would try to arrive before there was a race, because I was on top of my game. I was doing it all the time. If you got any skill at all and you do it a lot, you're probably going to get reasonably successful at it. And so I would go in, and often I would win. And then on Monday or Tuesday, go to the shop I wanted and say, hey, you remember that bike that beat everything else at your local track? Well, it's a bull taco, and here it is, and you could be the dealer. And if you're not interested, I can probably find another dealer. Oh, no. I had, like 90% success rate.
Awesome.
And I found a way to supercharge it, too. Check this out. Talk about bearing your soul. A few days in advance, I would call the target dealer, whoever it might be, Honda of Cleveland or whatever. And usually we were looking for a Honda Triumph dealer, because if they were a Honda dealer, they had a good business basis. And if they all said Triumph, it showed they had some soul. They weren't just Joe's hardware store. Yep. So that made a good target for Bull Taco. So I would typically call them, at least after a couple of years on the road, I figured this out, unlike Wednesday before, and say, hey, I'm Joe Smith from East Cleveland here. You got any of them Bull Tacos? Oh, no, sir. What are they? Oh, they're a Spanish motorcyclist winning everything. No, sorry, we don't know anything about it. Okay. Maybe a day or two later, hey, I'm Brad Taylor from West Cleveland. You got any Bull Tacos? That's funny. We had some guy calling the other day. No, we don't. Oh, okay, thank you. Then they'll win the race, then go knock on the door on Tuesday.
It reminds me of Evel Knievel when he got the he jumped one of the jumps he did. He would call up and do something similar. That's a page right out of his playbook. Did you get that from him, or was that all you? I
was doing it before
Evel Knievel. Maybe he stole that story.
He stole it out of my playbook. Incidentally, when I was Harley's PR director, that was sort of the end of Evel's career, and I was
something to do with the baseball bat and beating somebody up. That was the end of his career.
Yeah, that didn't go over well. He really was a good guy. He was a rough cut, but a good guy, a straight shooter. Yeah. And I'm sure if somebody got their arms and legs broken, one could argue that they deserved it.
Absolutely, yeah. And no doubt about it. I'm a huge Evel Knievel fan. So, in 40 years, the pendulum swings back and forth with the economy and different things going on. 2008 being a big setback from the industry, Harley-Davidson almost going out of business. Some companies going out of business and others struggling. What was your biggest year at Americade attendance-wise? Would you say?
Strangely enough, I don't have that on the top of my mind. There was a long period from the mid '90s, about a decade, from 1995 to 2006 or 7. That was big numbers, but I never quote numbers because I joke about it. The joke is, do you know how to tell if a promoter's lying? The answer is, see if their lips are moving. And that's when you're the organizer of an event. If you say a number, I don't care what it is, 50,000, whatever the number happens to be, the next year, all your sponsors and advertisers want to hear a bigger number. So you tend to, it must have been 55,000. And you keep doing that, and you end up with some ridiculous number, which is not defensible at all, and you've made yourself a massive liar. So I've never actually quoted a number. At one point when I got
promoter,
I got pressed into the corner. I called some guy in the police force. I said, if you're taking a wild ass guess how many people were in town, what would you say? He said, I said 50 to 100,000. I said, that's great. So I've got a police estimate of 50 to 100,000. I'll go with that.
Yeah, how would you even track it? I mean,
well, you can't because, if I can't put turnstiles on all the highways, I don't know how many motorcycles were brought to town. Yes, I do know how many people walked through my gates, which I'm not going to discuss, because of the same reason. You end up forcing yourself into a corner being a liar. Sure. I can tell you I had 10 employees and they were all adequately paid, and that it's tougher to make it in the business these days. It's much more competitive. People don't have as much walking around money as they did 20 years ago. The country's, tightened its belt a little bit. Welcome to the world.
If you had a crystal ball and you knew all the answers and how to make the rally grow, you would obviously do it. But on a high level, what does it take to keep a rally like this going for 43 years? And what do you need from now moving forward to help Americade grow? We want to see it grow. We want to help it grow. That's why we're here.
We need to get the word out. What you do, Ken, is very, very useful. You've got a million clicks, viewers. I mean, you're very much online. Christian, fortunately, his wife is very much into the .com business, so he's sensitive to that. I'm a dinosaur, man. When I started that, we were putting stamps on things and mailing them out. I mean, that's how far back that goes. That's from '83. I saw computers coming in, and I got a computer right away back when it was a green screen, and it used to crash all the time. But I realized we need to keep track of that. But bottom line is, broader communication. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of Christian because really he's the guy who would know this. I've been pulling away for the last half dozen years and enjoying retirement. But I would suggest that better coordination with manufacturers might help. If the manufacturer said, hey, don't miss us, we're going to be at Americade, we're going to be at so-and-so, and if it was better understanding of what Americade was so it wasn't confused with a walk up and ride up and park your bike event. I mean, Daytona, Laconia, people just go up and hang out, and there's really no center point to it. Americade is a center point. Americade started as a convention, and now it's sort of a convention / demo / happening thing. But it started as a convention. These other things didn't start as conventions. They started, I believe, as races, and people sort of hung out, and then people would come down even though they didn't go to the race.
Americade originally started as an Aspen Cade rally for the Aspen Cade, the Cavalcades, all the touring bikes. When did the metamorphosis happen? Because I would say it's not much different than the other big rallies. The demographic, you got sport bikes, I've seen a lot of dual purpose bikes, a lot of adventure bikes, a little bit of everything, and all the manufacturers have their full lineups here, including everything from dirt bikes to the biggest touring bikes. When did that metamorphosis happen? And was it on purpose, or was it like just evolved?
Evolution, because the size of the touring bike market is whatever it is. And there were other manufacturers who kind of wanted to get involved, but they wanted to bring more of their line. And certainly Honda as well. Honda expanded beyond touring for sure. So it was an evolutionary thing. I think it was accelerated by Christians creating an event called Dirt Days. This is an ADV bike event that happens in August in New Hampshire. And that drew in KTM, for example, at the time. And I think it made BMW happier because they've got a whole GS line. So again, the answer would be evolution, not revolution.
Speaking of KTM, we are actually literally in KTM's spot here this year. This was where the big orange rig, Jesse, a huge fan of Jesse and all the guys at KTM were making it happen. So we were holding the KTM torch with the gas lineup. We were parked right behind him last year, and that's where we'll be next year because Jesse will be back next year. KTM Group just got I think it was a $600 million cash infusion to continue operations as they are in Austria, made where they are by who they are. So that's really good news, and really the salt of the earth, Jesse and his whole team that ran they coached us into getting our rig and helped us figure everything out. And there's a real camaraderie amongst the drivers here. I'm the driver. I drive this rig in. I was here on Monday morning, bright and early, talking to all the drivers. And these are the guys with their feet on the street that know everybody in the company. And it's great to be part of the inner circle now, instead of just being a spectator like we were for decades. Now
you impacted Jesse a lot. Jesse was always comparing his rig to your rig. He had some features that you didn't have, but you had spit and polish that he didn't have.
3,400 hours of spit and polish. We punched time cards on the rig, and in January and February last year, we had 6 guys work on it. When I heard about the show and the contest award,
oh yeah,
I gotta get the. Can you grab the transporter award out of the rig for me, honey? We
kind of knew who was going to win it.
we heard about this transporter award, and me and my son and my team, we always play to win, right? So we had rented an indoor facility, and Carlos was right over here. He spent the better part of 2 months polishing the aluminum. We had John Lee spent over 3 weeks just doing the undercarriage with one other guy. And this was quite an honor to win from Americade the Transporter Showstopper Award for having the top rig against Harley Davidson with their 2 factory rigs, KTM, Yamaha, Honda, all of them. They're all here, A to Z, BMW, and some of these are multi-million-dollar rigs. Ours was built, not bought. We spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I bought this out of Canada and did a full frame-up build on it. So this was a huge honor, making all the hard work and dedication to making it happen worthwhile. But that was pretty cool.
It's like a perpetual win, because I think all the others realize who's going to win if we have another contest.
Yeah,
you're still the spit and polish king, I think.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time this year. Also, not 3,400 hours. So once you get it this clean, it's easier to keep it clean. But we love it here. We're looking forward to come back next year. And guys, if you haven't been to the Americade Rally, whether you're on an enduro bike, a dual sport, a supermoto. These are the best roads in the Northeast. Pretty much any direction you go Route 8 north, go Route 28, ride Route 9. There isn't a bad road around here, and there's not a lot of there's no harassment from the police from what I've seen. Lots of accommodations, if not here in town, any of the surrounding villages, you'll be right at home. Lots of friendly people. In this time of year, I can't imagine there isn't a more plush, green, beautiful place in the United States of America, because I've traveled the whole country racing and going to events, than Memorial Day at Americade. And it happens to be my son's 26th birthday too, so today, May 30th. So
happy birthday.
We celebrated his birthday here last year. We had a cake and sang a happy birthday and did the same thing this year. So yeah, we're honored to be here, and looking forward to Jesse coming back next year. Now, the industry as a whole had another pendulum swing the last couple of years. A lot of the companies have been struggling. We know KTM had some financial issues. A lot of other companies cut production dramatically because they saw the post-COVID market not being what it has been. I don't know how that's impacted attendance here, but as far as I can see, the attendance at the rally seems to be great to me. What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen the numbers at all. I would expect them to be flat, simply because of all the factors that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And when he moved it to the time we have it now, at the very end of May, it's just a little bit cooler and sometimes a little bit wetter. Getting into June is a little warmer and less, but he's driven by the availability of the key OEMs, the key manufacturers. So, and yet, what drives a lot of attendance is the weather forecast, even more than the real weather itself. If you've got a bad forecast, people don't get on their bikes. The motorcycle market is aging. And I guess as you get older, you get a little more wisdom or prudence or whatever you want to say. And if it's forecast to be a wet week, that's the worst thing that can happen. Well, we got a medium forecast. They've been off almost every day. And tomorrow, unfortunately, is not looking all that great at the moment. But it may change. Welcome to the mountains. When you get up here in the Adirondacks, whatever happens, you'll put up the shade in the morning and, oh, okay.
For those of you who didn't come because you thought the weather might have been bad, boy, did you get fooled, because it's been beautiful every day. It's been a little overcast, so it hasn't been too hot. And it hasn't rained 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It drizzled a little bit at night, but in the daytime, it's been spectacular riding weather. We rode around the entire lake on Tuesday, had one of the best rides I've ever had up here. The weather's been a 10. With New England, when they say it's a 50% chance of rain, I don't let that stop me. And that's what they said, and it didn't rain. So
yeah, 50-50 can go either way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that ride around the lake, that was one of the things that I first loved, that ride up over Tongue Mountain. And you got to pay attention, though. That's one thing I would like to caution everybody about. This is the Adirondacks, and the Adirondacks are made out of granite, Adirondack granite. And that helps the mountains maintain their shape, but it doesn't do you any good if you overcook it. So ride smart. Tongue Mountain makes me think of that. There's a couple of S-bends in Tongue Mountain which they fool people. They're marked like crazy. They're marked way in advance. And every year, no, I'd say every year, but pretty much every year, somebody will overcook it and you'll read about it in the paper.
Yeah, when you have a rally with 50,000 plus people showing up, and some of them may not be the best, most experienced riders, and they're having a little too much fun with their buddies, and then they let their ego write a check that their riding skills can't cash, So
yeah,
cut it back to 8/10. That's how
Bingo.
I survived at 60 years old. You at 83, been riding your entire life.
I still ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dirt bike I take up on the gravel roads. I finally took the knobbies off it about 4 or 5 years ago when I got a new knee. I decided, rocky creek beds and, knee-deep mud. I won't do that now. But gravel roads, any kind of sand wash, I'm good with that.
We had a CRF 250L that Christy and I would ride at these rallies. Liquid cooled, could ride around the pits all day long and wouldn't overheat. We upgraded to a KLR 650 and nicknamed Big Black. I love that bike. It's an 04 older one, but it's been great. What is your enduro bike of choice?
Funny you should mention that. I own a KLR. I've been up to Northern Labrador on it, and it's the same bike that, although not the very same bike, but the same model, that Christian and I rode as far south as you can go in the world. He and I rode down to Tierra del Fuego at the south end of South America, all on dirt roads, and did it with KLRs. So KLRs are, you know, they're no good for motocross, but they're good when you want to go pocket across anything. And I happen to find it a lovable bike. It's a lazy big single, and it helps me be lazy on a motorcycle. If I get on a crotch rocket, my brain goes road race, which is just not a good place for my brain to be. So I get on the KLR and it's, hey, it's relaxing time, thumper time.
That's the bike you're riding now?
Yeah.
Christy loves our KLR. That was another thing that the 250L had. The seat was a little too small. The KLR was a big, it's a large motorcycle. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'2", 220, and I feel really comfortable on it. The peg to seat to bar relationship is kind of spread out. I got some Renthal bars, tall bars, and
mine are up a little bit.
I did do the progressive shock on the rear because the rear one blew out eventually because the bike's 21 years old. I did the progressive fork springs and braided stainless brake lines and put a pipe on it and tuned it. It's just a Junior's riding the Gas 700. We're a Gas dealer, and that thing is an absolute rocket ship compared to my KLR, and the suspension, you can't even compare it really. I mean, you can run that in a motocross track. The KLRs, if you're looking for a 35, they're 30 horsepower stock and totally understressed and bulletproof for an old dude to plunk around on. Like me,
it's lovable.
It's perfect,
There's something lovable about it.
Yes, yeah. Mechanical integrity. I think, I don't know which YouTuber it was, but one of the famous YouTubers with that channel up in Canada for one of the manufacturers tried to kill one. You remember the name of that YouTuber? I don't know. We'll put it in the comments. I'll remember as soon as we're done with the video. But he actually put it through an acid test where he literally tried to destroy it with high-speed passes, revving the engine. He actually parked it in a lake on the kickstand, all the way up to the top of the cylinder, but not into the airbox. Or was it? No, it was the top of the engine cases. Yeah, it was up to the top of the engine cases, but not past the intake, so the water wouldn't get in, and wanted to see if the electronics could stand it. And he left it there overnight. And he came back in the morning, and the only thing that was sticking out was the handlebars that had fallen over. So he drags it out, turns it upside down, clicks the key on with the spark plug out, turns it over to get the water out, turns it right side up, and the thing ran. And it actually, the bike, he went to Moab, Utah with it, and he purposely jumped it onto a rock to see what would happen. I mean, pretty ignorant thing to do, right? But he smashed a hole into the engine cases, and all the oil leaked out. So he took a beer can and some kind of metal putty or something like that, an actual beer can and metal putty, and made a little patch for it and filled it up and was still riding it. And he just gave up. He's like, you can't kill this thing. But they've got to be one of the most, probably the fact that it's a 650 only putting out 30 horse is part of it. But they also, Kawasaki makes ships and
I put a big bore kit in mine because mine was using oil. If you run them really hard, like over 5,000 RPM for a couple of hours. I was playing with a guy that had a Tenere, and we were up in northern Labrador, and I killed him in the tight stuff. We got out into the wide open stuff, and he's going along about 100 miles an hour. So I got the thing just totally pegged and was shocked to discover how much oil it was using. It was about a quart every 600 miles. Okay. And so when I got back, I put a 685 kit in it, and it solved the oil problem and gave it a little bit more snap. Yep. I've done a few things to mine. I think mine probably makes about 40 horsepower now. Nice. You can feel the difference, but it's not huge.
The funny story, when I first got my bike, I bought it from a friend of mine who owned a junkyard for $800, and it needed some help. This goes back a long ways, but I still have the bike. He had left it out sitting outside, so the burgundy fenders turned like this mauve color, pink, and all four turn signals stalks cracked and fell off. But the bike, mechanically, the bones were all still good, so I cleaned the carb and got it running, and the rear shock was completely blown out. So we own a motorcycle museum. We're loaded with all these killer bikes, but there was something about this KLR I really liked, right? So in Christy, I said, I'm gonna take you for a ride in the KLR. And she looks at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you riding this mauve-colored KLR? I said, this is a great bike. We just gotta give it a chance. So we took her for a ride, and the shock was blown out. It was bouncing. The turn signals were flopping around like a fish out of water. And needless to say, she didn't like it very much. She said, don't give up before the miracle, because I'm gonna do the magic on this bike. So we ended up, the black paint on the tank buffed right out, nice, but the fenders were long gone. So we got new black fenders and
the new rear shock is what made it.
The Penske shock. No, excuse me, the progressive shock, progressive fork springs, tuned it up perfectly, ran it through the detail shop, put a gold chain on it and some Michelin Anarchy tires, a pipe, and a tuner. Got it the wizard tune so you could rev it to red line, let off the throttle, and just go whoa all the way down the idle without popping once. And then she kind of, I took her out, and then she kind of fell in love with it. And she's like, this is great. We went to the sand pits where I rode as a kid through the woods. We rode 2 up through some gnarly trails, because they are pretty decent off-road if you're big enough to throw it around with a passenger, up some sand hills that she had to get off, and got lost in the woods, and met one of my old friends who we actually did a video at the sand pits. A friend of mine that I used to ride with there back in the 80s, literally 40 years ago, happened to show up on a big thumper, 500 Yamaha. I hear him coming through the woods. Jeff Graham is his name. And I was just shocked that he would be at the sand pits. It was just one of those rare moments where it was meant to be. But one of my old riding buddies used to hang out the pits with showed up there 40 years later. But it's been a great bike. And
yeah, bar backs, if you're going to ride in the soft dirt or anything, especially if you're a good-sized guy, not only risers, but back a little, because the shortcoming of the KLR, I love mine to death, but I know its strengths and weaknesses. It's got a little bit too much weight on the front wheel. And so if you get bar backs and you can get back a ways, that really improves it in the sand or the mud.
So, yeah. How many bikes do you think you've owned throughout your life?
I've been in a situation where I could borrow so many different bikes. I don't think I've had, 20 bikes in my life. I only have 3 right now. And the only one I ride really is the KLR.
Do you have a favorite from all the bikes you've ridden and raced over the years?
Probably the 250 Bull Taco Matisse I had. I had a 250 2-stroke, and it was it was shockingly better than what else was out there at that time. And so I can still remember some of the part numbers in it.
If back to the rally, if you had any words of wisdom to encourage the people that may be interested in coming, what would you say? Why would you want a family to come to America?
Come here?
Yes.
Your family will love it. It is a beautiful place to be. Not only do you get a chance to be the kid in the candy store and ride every bike you can imagine and get off one and get on another, and which is the best possible way to learn what you like and what you don't like. You don't know what you don't know. So when you get onto some bike that you didn't think you'd like, and you say, oh, I kind of like that, whatever it might be, now your brain is expanded, and now you'll be better able to make another choice. So from the standpoint of a bike freak, it's Christmas every day here. But from the family standpoint, if you have a non-riding wife, it's a lovely place to walk around. There's some fun gift stores. It's a gorgeous lake, lovely to walk around the south end of the lake here. There's things for everybody. If you've got a little kid that for whatever reason isn't riding, there's all kinds of games and what have you to play with kids. It's a huge popular summer vacation spot, and Americade comes in just before the crowds. So, you'll be shoulder to shoulder at 4th of July, but right now you kind of walk right in and you're in pretty good shape. We've always made sure we're just a little before. And the other good thing about that is the merchants are delighted to see you. It's been a long winter.
And there's the wineries and the restaurants and the ice cream shops. It's a little something.
Ben and Jerry's. It's a godsend for Ben and Jerry's. They can't keep the stuff in stock.
I definitely gained at least 5, maybe 10 pounds the week we've been here so far. It's been spectacular. We're going out to eat at the Lobster House across the street, getting a double lobster tonight. A lot of the restaurants are either waterfront or right on the main drag. And it's Friday night. We want to be on the main drag, so we're going to be eating outside, watching all the bikes go by. Hard to find a parking spot Friday night on Main Street here. It is an absolute zoo. So you want to get in early, get your spot. We're actually going to walk across the street to the restaurant from where we are, ground zero here at the Fort William Henry Hotel. That's where the restaurant is. You don't really even need a motorcycle when you come here, because one, you can ride the manufacturer's bikes all day long, like you had mentioned. Being a manufacturer rep all those years, you had your pick of the litter. But you can come here with no motorcycle. And at night, you don't really need a motorcycle. You can walk out the front door. There's fireworks here tonight, killer fireworks. You walk out the front door, and there's $1 Million Beach Road, where all the vendors are, and all the arcades for the kids, and the restaurants, and all the gift shops. And there's museums on Main Street and down here. Steamships, fishing. You can rent a boat. You can go camping here. There's killer campgrounds if you don't want to stay in a hotel. It's just quite an experience that you really need to bring the whole family. And we bought the cats, I bought my son, but Christy's here, the whole family's here, So hope you get a chance to experience it if you haven't. If you have, leave in the comments what your thoughts were about Americade and what we can do to make it better for next year, and how we can make it bigger and better every year. We want to pass it on to the next generation. That's why you need to bring the kids here, bring your little kids here. They'll have a phenomenal time. You know, that's our, as a steward and ambassador for Americade, I'm sure it makes you happy seeing the younger generations coming here. And
yeah, pay it forward. I mean, motorcycling has been the thread that runs through my whole life. And right from when I first had a bicycle, if it had 2 wheels and moved, I was interested. But it's funny how it's knit together my whole life. But I would wish that for anybody, to have a passion, whatever it is. It could be golf, I don't care. Just something that's a passion that you're able to follow as the thread for your life. That, I mean, I can sit here with 60, 65 years of experience, and it's you know, endless stories. I could I could bend your ear for a long time, but they're all things that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been part of motorcycling.
I can't imagine my life without motorcycling. Like,
wow, when you get to be my age, you're going to be an old gray beard like me, and they'll be asking you the questions.
So yeah, it's most of the best times in my life have been revolved around going to these events. And I spent 25 years in the computer industry, and all my vacations were going to Americade, Laconia, Daytona, Sturgis, going to the national motocross race, going to Unadilla, racing motorcycles. Everything revolved around motorcycles, and all the vehicles, even the house we live in, everything revolved around how can we bring more motorcycles with us and stay there longer, you know. And now we've progressed to this where we've got 300 gallons of water, 175 gallons of diesel fuel, and full living quarters in it, so we could stay here for weeks. Unfortunately, it's only a week, so we got to go home tomorrow, sadly. But it's been a great week here at Americade. I'm really glad I came. Thank you all for watching. I hope you too get a chance to experience this, and please hit the like and subscribe. And while you're at it, we're raffling off a brand new 2025 Stark Varg EX. Pick yourself up a ticket, $10. Can't win if you don't play at KaplanCycles.com. Just go onto the website right there. And if you want to come down and try out any one of these new motorcycles, you got till Saturday at what time is it?
They close, I think, at 4 tomorrow.
4 o'clock Saturday. And if you're here, hopefully to see you this year, and if not this year, next year.
Plan it for next year.
Absolutely.
Check out the Americade website, Americanadecom.
Yes, the website's excellent with a lot of videos on there and pictures of the rallies. And thank you all for watching. God bless Americade, and of course, God bless America.